Mount St. Helens is in the state of Washington. It was a very beautiful mountain. I lived in Portland for 2 years. That was one of the two beautiful mountains that you could observe. There was Mount Hood, which was in Oregon, which was a beautiful mountain. But as far as symmetry was concerned, Mount St. Helens was even more beautiful. It was about 9,600 feet before the eruption. This is another picture of Mount St. Helens before the eruption. In May 17th, they had warnings about this mountain, but on May 17th, the bulge began to form. You can see the bulge forming on this side of the mountain. It was growing at a rate of about 5 feet per day. And then on May 18th, Mount St. Helens blew its top. 1,300 feet of the peak collapsed and blew outward. There were 57 people who were killed or missing. I'm sure they were killed as a result, including a man named Harry Truman, which wasn't the former president of the United States. This shows the area of which the devastation occurred. It was miles around that this area was affected. This shows a picture of the crater that was formed as a result of blowing off to the top of the mountain. And this shows a picture of the trees that were blown over by the blast. It was estimated that there was 4 billion board feet of usable timber, which is enough to build 150,000 houses. You figure about 4 people per house. That's enough to build houses for a city of 600,000 people. Blown over, damaged. An aerial shot of the trees in Spirit Lake. That is not very clear, but the lake was covered with trees that were blown over from the. But what really caused problems is in the next picture shows is a mudslide. They claim that nearly 2/3 of a cubic mile of debris slid from the volcano, and the velocity of this mudslide exceeded 150 miles per hour. Can you imagine 2/3 of a cubic mile? 3,000 feet by 3,000 feet by 5,000 feet, that much mud sliding at a rate of 150 miles per hour. It's fortunate there wasn't much population in the area. And this is a picture before and after. On the left showing before the mountain erupted. After shows the huge crater that came out and the blast that occurred. Another before and after picture of Spirit Lake. And this was before. And this is a picture afterwards, obviously a little different time of the day, which shows the huge crater that was involved. Now, why do I cover Mount St. Helens in this class? What's so significant about it? It's probably the most significant geological event that occurred in the United States in the 20th century. What makes it significant is that this eruption showed that great amounts of geologic work could be done very rapidly by a catastrophe. In other words, in minutes, days, hours, things occurred that were thought to occur in thousands of years. Dr. Steve Austin did considerable work on this, and it shows the layers, the stratification layers. He thought, as a geologist, took thousands of years. There were layers that took place in apparently minutes. The Mount St. Helens helps us to understand that formations like the Grand Canyon didn't take millions of years. That's right, this is igneous rock, but the mudslide that occurred when the dam broke, actually it was months later when the dam broke and washed out this river and gouged out these canyons, that was gouging it out of sedimentary rock, so it was the same type of rock. So they claim that this is like a miniature model of the Grand Canyon, like about a 1/40 to scale. And the same types of processes must have occurred See, the explanation that was given a lot by evolutionists was that the Grand Canyon was formed by the Colorado River meandering through this canyon over millions of years. And the reverses took place. The canyon was probably formed first, and then the river followed it. And it probably was a giant dam that formed after the flood and then gave way. This is the significant slide of this presentation. It produced changes which geologists thought required thousands of years to take place. It helps us on a small scale to imagine what the biblical flood may have been like. Some of the geologic effects at Mount St. Helens is stratifications. This layer formation was thought to have taken thousands of years. Up to 600 feet of thickness of strata formed since 1980, and that, you note, it was just within a couple of years, or actually I think it was a few months. And then erosion. If you look at the erosion patterns, a canyon system up to 140 feet deep in the Tula River Valley. And as I mentioned, this mechanism could have formed the Grand Canyon in a short period of time. And another very interesting phenomenon is in Spirit Lake, after they investigated this, these floating logs, a lot of them would end up vertical because of the huge ball at the tree, mass of the tree, and they were vertical, and after they got really waterlogged, they sank. And they went scuba diving underneath these logs and saw these vertical logs, and these logs would be in the bottom, and eventually they settled at different times. And this gives a good explanation of the petrified forest in Yellowstone. If you go to Yellowstone, they try to tell you that different eras these forests form. But again, this happened in just a short period of time, 10 years after Mount St. Helens. These things uprightly rooted themselves in the ground. And then the last geologic effect was the peat layer. When these floating logs rubbed against one another, the bark came off and settled, and there was a layer of peat at the bottom. And some feel that all that's needed to form coal here would be the burial of this and adequate temperature. So geologists, what they thought previously took thousands of years to form, and geologists thought, for example, coal, each inch took about 1,000 years to form. It shows that this could have taken place very rapidly, and this peat layer could have been an example of the early formation of coal.